Tea, where we give you the real tea with a twist on Hindsight Media Radio 103.5 FM, where there's always something good to talk about. My special guest this evening is a resilient woman, author, mother, singer, musician, advocate, fighter, relatable warrior. Tonight, we will touch on her book titled From Broken to Badass. Yes, you heard it right. From Broken to Badass. We'll leave you with a revolving wow factor as the stories are raw and real, engaging, and will prepare you for powerful ending. Talk about healing, right? The author herself is a badass warrior who turned her pain into power, painting a visual picture through words while advocating through her nonprofit Brave First Step. Welcome to the platform, Cindy.
Gosh, thank you so much. Those words just have overwhelmed me. That was very generous. Thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely. So no, thank you also for just coming to the platform and your willingness to share your story, because oftentimes it's so easy for us to talk about other individuals, but to talk about ourselves and look in the mirror and reflect on the life that we've gone through and to share that with the world with hoping that they won't be judgmental, but that they will understand and that they will take it as a healing process and a help guide, right? And
Absolutely.
so I'm super excited to have you here this evening. Now, is there anything else you want to share that I'm sure I missed?
The only thing that I want to add to that description is my favorite name, which is Big Mama. That's what my grandkids call me, and that's my absolute favorite thing. That's my favorite role right now. Of all the other things I have going on, when I hear one of my precious babies call me Big Mama, everything else stops.
All right, Big Mama. I love it. Good stuff. Good stuff. Now, let's just jump right on into this. Why
Awesome.
the title From Broken to Badass?
Okay, that's actually a very interesting story. You've seen the book. The cover of it is a picture of my tattoo. And I actually got the tattoo at the onset of knowing I was going to do the start the nonprofit Brave First Step. And I'm actually in the artist chair, and he's going on hour number 5, I think it was a 6-hour process for that whole upper arm sleeve. And for those listeners that haven't seen the book yet, it's a sword and a shield, and over the hilt of the sword is a crown. And so I had shared with the artist, the guy who was putting the tattoo on, I had shared with him why I was starting the nonprofit. So I kind of told him a little bit about my story. It's kind of like going to the hairdresser. If you've ever had a tattoo, you end up just kind of spilling your guts because this person is, they're putting permanent marks on your body. So we're sitting there getting to know each other, and I'm sharing my story with him and why, what the significance of the tattoo was. And like I said, we're on hour 5, and I've got a little bit of sweat at the top of my lip because, after a while it's, you're a little weary. Anyway, another client who was had another tattoo done, he was walking past, I guess going back to the back part of the building. And he stopped by and he looked at it and he shook his head and he's like, "Hey man, that's badass." And the guy, I can't remember his name right now, who was doing the tattoo, he said, "Dude, if you think the tattoo's badass, you should meet this woman because she's so badass." And I was like, "Guys, you guys are hilarious." I already knew that I was going to have the word broken in the title, because looking back at how I felt that day in the emergency room, I knew that broken was going to be in the title. I just didn't know what the ultimate was going to be, and I just it was birthed out of that experience. So it's funny and it's absolutely true. And the good news is that moment that gave me that word, that's why that tattoo's on the front cover.
Wow, that is so awesome. And it is definitely fitting. I can tell you that much. It is awesome. And I can't wait for you guys to definitely read the book. And it will be posted up on our Facebook and all of our social media platforms because it is definitely a great read. And as Cindy mentioned to me when I first got the book, it's a short read, but I tell you, you want to read it over and over and over because you're like, wait, I may have missed something. Or you start painting your own picture. Even though she's painting that picture for you, you're like, I hope these things happen in the book. So it's, oh my gosh, it's just a phenomenal read. So
Thank
Cindy,
you.
paying it forward, we know that it's truly instrumental in our growth as individuals, right?
Absolutely.
It's great to give and not so much receive, but I've learned over time it's also great to be a great receiver as well as a giver, but it's instrumental in your growth. So the proceeds from your book are being donated to your nonprofit organization, Brave First Step, right?
Absolutely,
So,
100%. Well, 100% of the 100% of the royalties I receive, I get a percentage off of each ebook and off of each
mhm.
printed book, and they go directly into the nonprofit account. I don't touch them.
Okay, so let's talk about the mission and purpose of Brave First Step. Paint us a picture of what Brave First Step is. Why did it come about, and what is its mission and purpose?
So I'm going to tell you why it came about. What started as, and I allude to this, and I think I touch on a little bit of it in the book. Um, Over the last few years, especially right after I moved here to Atlanta, up from Florida, I had my path was crossed by two different individuals, two different women in two different geographical areas, two different financial situations. I just happened to be in the right place at the right time, and I saw that there was a need, that they needed help at that time. One, the situation unfolded right in front of my face. And
Wow.
so she jumped out of one car, and she said she needed help. And I asked her, I told her to take, her and her son to just go ahead and get in my car. And I told her, I'm safe. I'm a
Wow.
grandma. You don't have to worry, because, she
Big
just jumped
mama.
in there with a stranger. But, that speaks volumes. Let's think about that for a second. She was so scared about the situation she was in that she grabbed her son in the middle of traffic, jumped out of a car in the middle of a road,
Wow.
and was so grateful that there was someone who offered her sanctuary, that she jumped in a stranger's car.
Wow.
And so over a period of time, just trying to do what I could to help her find better, stable housing, and get a job, because when you leave somebody, you leave it.
Oh,
You
yes.
right. So over a period of time, just me doing that by myself, I thought, listen, I just happen to be at the right place at the right time. How many other people are at the right place in the right time, and they don't feel like they can do something? They don't feel that
Hmm.
they can help. Or what if she was still scared and decided to stay in the car? How can we reach
Right.
her? And I realized I can't do this by myself. And I know that there's other associations out there, because of my position with PTA, and my strong tribe of people
Hmm.
that I surround myself with. Our reach is so much further. We have a nationwide reach with all the people I'm connected with through PTA. So I thought, this is not a singular situation. This happens every single day.
Yes.
And we need to do what we can. You said something about paying it forward. I allude to what Harriet Tubman did. I mean, think about what she went through, how she finally was able to make her way to freedom and no longer be a slave. And
Hmm.
what did she do? Did she just sit and relish it and say, okay, well, now I'm not burdened, that's not my life anymore, and then go about her business? Absolutely not.
Right.
Now, like I say, I am not Harriet Tubman. I don't put my life on the line every single day. I'm not rescuing people out of bondage, but there's an obligation. I'm not special. I just found people along my way that they were in the right place at the right time, just like I
Absolutely.
was that day. They gave me hope. They gave me strength. And it is my obligation as a survivor of that situation to turn around and reach my hand back and say, okay, who else needs to be helped out? Because you can't survive that situation. So it is a part of growth when you finally reach a point. And you don't have to be at a place of total healing either. You can just say, I made it through. I'm alive. I'm no longer in that hurtful situation. And now
Hmm.
how can I help others? I mean, it's part of the healing as well.
Absolutely. So, you said some great things within that, but I consider you brave because nowadays there's so much going on with people that take their telephones out and they record, or people just fearful oftentimes to be receptive of that help, or
Right.
other individuals are fearful to get in and get involved in help because they're afraid of lawsuits, or if I go help this person, will they take the help, or what will be the consequences after, if anything at all. So, but to be brave enough to say, you know what, I'm taking the me away first. and
That's
I'm
right.
stepping myself aside to help this individual who seemed to need the help right now. And like you said, thank goodness she was definitely receptive or receiving that help, so you be that sanctuary for her. Now,
That's
so
right.
in writing your book, well, for me, in reading your book, From Broken to Badass, would you say that your past struggles helped you make sense of your life today? When you were writing it, what did that look for like for you if you go back now reading your book and say, what does your life look like today in reference to that book, From Broken to Badass?
So, writing it, I started writing it probably in the end of 2019.
Okay.
Started it in December and tried to finish it up in January, thinking I was going to get it published in January of 2020. I'm sorry, in the spring of 2020, and we all know what 2020 was. So that
Right.
wasn't um, just the act of sitting down and writing it. I had surgery on my foot. I was in bed. I was non-weight bearing for about 12 weeks because I'm a hiker, and I had to make sure that I was taking care of my new foot. So that's what I did. That was something that I did. Is I just decided I've been thinking about starting this nonprofit and doing all of this. How can I put all of this down? And as I wrote, it's one thing to know that these things happened in my life, and to be able, when I hear a story, and say, oh yeah, I've had something similar. But when you sit down and you revisit that, and you're actually putting your feelings and those experiences, and you're remembering what people said to you in the middle of it, and you're remembering how you felt at that moment when an atrocity was committed towards you, it brings up so many feelings. And it was painful, it was cathartic, it was healing. That's just the bottom line. It was so healing, and no one else was hearing it at that time, just myself. And I would cry writing it. And that's how, I just poured myself into it, because I didn't want it to be, obviously I knew that people of all ages were going to be reading it. So I didn't want to be very blatant, but I wanted people to understand just exactly what took place without making it, raw. So looking at my life now, I had so many epiphanies as I'm reading it. How did I end up in the situation where I am in? How did I find the courage to leave my home of 50 years and start a brand new life here in Atlanta, where all I had was work? How did I find the courage and the ambition to end up working in the field I'm at the position I'm in? I think every single thing that happened to me, every bit of, you said brave, every bit of bravery that I slowly built up over that life of the abuse and things that I was enduring, every bit of it has manifested itself into who I am today. It has touched every aspect of my life. And people say, I wish things like that hadn't happened to you. I can't say that. I can't say that I have any regret. I can say I regret that they ever happened to someone else. But the truth is, those things strengthened me. They may have knocked me down. They may have broken me for a period of time, but and they have led me to the life I have now. And they've put a microphone in my hand, where I have to be able to now tell everyone, it doesn't matter where you are in your walk. It doesn't matter where you are in your life. There is hope. And hope is the one thing that I hope people get out of reading that book, that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you've made mistakes. It doesn't matter if you've stayed. It doesn't matter why you stayed. It doesn't matter. There is hope. There's another life out there, and it's an abundant life if you choose it. You just have to take that brave first step. And writing the book is what actually gave me the name of the nonprofit. I knew I wanted it. You asked me a little earlier, what was the mission? And I completely, went off the topic with that. So it got together. I decided to bring in some folks who have been instrumental in my life and who have a high level of influence with me into this project. And we got together, obviously through Zoom, because this was after.
This is it. This is the life today.
Yeah, exactly. It's how we live. It's how we live it. And I talked about the mission. I talked about what I envisioned, but I also trusted that vision with them and said, guys, help me come up with what it is that we're going to do, because I'm all over the place. I just want to go out. I just want to go out and grab a sword and a shield and start saving people, jumping into houses and pulling them out and say, come on. Yeah, you can't do that. Like you said earlier, that's kind of crazy, but that's my mindset. Is I just want to go, I want to go fix it. I
Yeah.
want to go help everybody that raises their hand. So together, together we came up with the mission, and I wrote it down because I don't have it completely committed to memory. It's on the website, by the way. We want to provide for the urgent needs of those who are in harmful domestic situations. At first we said domestic violence, but there are so many other things besides violence that are harmful domestic situations. There's verbal abuse, there's mental abuse. Not every abuse is physical in its own form, but we want to help those who are in harmful domestic situations by connecting them to resources and sanctuary. It's kind of what I did when I was faced with that situation.
Mm-hmm.
I connected her to the places that I knew would help, and provided her immediate sanctuary of my car. And then there's communities out there, and I'm going to be candid. Depends on where you live and,
Mm-hmm.
and what the financial demographic of the area is, what kind of resources are out there. There are some
Absolutely.
underserved communities out there that there are no resources.
Wow.
And it's aggravating. It's disheartening when there are people who need help and there aren't resources close to them. So the other side of this is not just if someone raises their hand to say, we can help you, we can connect you with a resource that's close to you.
Right.
Uh, but where there are no resources, our focus is going to be to talk to our decision makers, our legislators, our elected officials in those areas, and say, why don't you have more? You have more resources. Why are there not more programs? And then for those programs that just don't have the bandwidth, then we can use our resources and our revenue that we collect and say, how can we give to you when we find a program that is successful? How can we expand your program?
Love that.
How can we get you in underserved communities? That's our ultimate objective, to make sure that no matter where somebody is, whether they're in Florida, Georgia, Pennsylvania, Michigan, if they raise their hand and they say, I need help, if they jump out of the backseat of a car and say, God, help me, that we can find them help immediately.
Wow. Now, did you ever find yourself questioning your own reality? Like, why is this my life? Why is this my reality?
Well, I'm going to say every day I question my reality. Actually, what I do is I think it's a sign of maturity. As we get older, we're introspective of, why did I say that? Why did I do that? Why am I here? Why did I choose this?
Yeah.
Am I choosing this because there's a greater design for my life, or am I
Mm-hmm.
being selfish? Am I being self-centered? Why did I choose that? Am I doing this out of a victim mentality? Because I've made, if this is keeping it real, I'm
It
gonna
is
keep it
keeping it real.
um, after what happened to me on my 16th birthday, and for those people that haven't, read the book, I I lost my virginity on my 16th birthday,
Yeah.
and it was not because I wanted it. And a lot of the things that happened in the years after that, I made very horrible decisions because I had a victim mentality, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But that was my reality. That was my perspective of, I am now not worthy, right? And once again, you mentioned earlier about writing the book. Oh, writing the book, it's like someone put the timeline out there for me and said,
Wow.
oh, look, this happened then, and then 5 years later, you did this.
In divine
And
order.
it was mind-blowing, because you're like, wow, I thought I was making those decisions because they were my decisions, but I was reacting from the trauma that I'd experienced, right?
Yeah.
So when you ask if I question my perspective or my reality, these days I want to make sure that I'm very clear on what my motivation is. Am I
Love
really
it.
truly motivated to do good, to take what I have, the abundance of what I have, and put it towards those people that need help. Absolutely. And I always question my motives, and I just want to make sure that they're always pure and that I'm listening more than I'm talking, which of course is kind of odd in an interview, but outside of this, outside of the realm of this and sharing the message, I want to be a better listener. I want to grow. And so I'm always making sure I'm checking my motives on what my perspective is and why I'm doing what I'm doing.
Love that. Now, as Big Mama, what what would you say to girls, women, boys, or even men? Because I think oftentimes people forget that what you went through at the age of 16, that is, girls and women are not the only victims. They're not the only people that go through
Nope,
what you went through,
absolutely
right?
not. Nope.
Boys and men go through it as well. So, what would you say to girls, women, boys, and men who are currently being taken advantage of sexually? Whatever that picture may look like, that's just not, a pretty picture, and they are remaining silent due to the thoughts of the embarrassment or slander or judgment, etc., that the church or the world or their friends or their family may put on them. What would you say to them to encourage them to even come forward with something of this sort? And take your time. Keep it real. Keep it raw. Don't feel like you have to rush through it. Give it to us how it needs to be said, because we want those listeners out there listening to that to understand the importance of this.
So when I look back and I look at, so we start, at the first trauma that you hear about, obviously, is the sexual assault, right?
Absolutely. Yes.
And then years later, when I end up in a situation where I'm living with an abuser, and I stay there, because I have every excuse of why not. And you just touched on every one of them: the stigma, the embarrassment, even from the assault. What are people going to think? What were you wearing? I mean, back in the 80s, it was about, well, why were you there? What were you wearing? It was never. It was always skewed to, did you really, did you really not want it? Okay. And
Right.
that's another rabbit hole we could go down forever. What happens, the reason that I believe that people stay in those situations or they don't cry out for help, is they have forgotten their value. They have, and I'm going to get emotional here.
Feel free to. It's okay.
They forget their worth.
Mm-hmm.
They forget that each person who is here has a destiny. They have a design on their life that needs to be fulfilled. And whoever they're with that is taking advantage of them mentally, emotionally, sexually, who is not honoring and respecting who they are, they're not fulfilling their role either. They're not living in what their calling is. And I said earlier, I made some really crappy mistakes. I mean, I had some poor judgment for a long time. And why did I do that? Because I had no value among myself. I didn't think I was worthy of love. I thought I was dirty. I thought I was soiled, and I would never be whole again, because because I had allowed that to happen. I didn't fight hard enough, or whatever the excuses that people always tell you. And all of those are lies. It's all lies. I didn't really find the courage to start talking about this and realizing the need to share my story until I had reached a certain level. And, I start the whole book like this. I had reached a certain point in my life in PTA, where I was the president of Florida PTA, and I was speaking at, we had an engagement somewhere, and I got up and spoke, and some other people spoke, and a lady came up afterwards, and she just said, I just would love to be able to do what you guys do, but I'm just going to be a volunteer. I could never be in leadership because I just really don't have my stuff all together like you do. I didn't go to college, and I'm not that well spoken. And in my head, I'm going, oh, honey, wait. No, you've got it wrong. I am a train wreck. You have no idea. Look past this lipstick. Okay. You don't know what has led me to that point. And then I realized I had had a mask on for the last 15, 20 years where I didn't want anybody to be able to see
Wow.
the broken part, the
Mhm.
stuff that wasn't completely healed. And I just had that moment where I realized I'm in a position of influence over people who may be going through what I was going through.
That's
I
right.
mean, I sat through PTA meetings. When my kids were little, I sat through PTA meetings knowing I was going to go home and there may be a potential of a situation. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Who was
Yes.
there? What were you wearing? Why didn't you come home on time? Why are you 30 minutes late? I couldn't
Hmm.
stay after and talk to anybody. And the reality when that hit me is that how many times have I been sitting in front of a crowd of 200-300 people, 1,000 people? What are the odds and the statistics that somebody out there had experienced or was still experiencing what I had gone through? So it was time to just say, okay, guys, I'm going to have to keep it real. And thank you for letting me be able to say that.
Absolutely.
So the next time I had an opportunity, it was my last time being able to speak on the stage as PTA president of the state of Florida. And I had a large group out there. I thought there's not a better time to just say, all right, guys, here comes the mask. It's coming off. Because if one person sitting in that audience was feeling unworthy
Yes.
or of no value, and they were staying in a situation because it was best for the kids, or they didn't want anybody else to know,
Hmm.
or it was just gonna open them up to judgment. I had to set them free, right?
Yes.
I had to
Absolutely.
say,
Absolutely.
you're not by yourself, because as much as you think I've got it all together, I come from that brokenness. I come from that fear. I come from the hopelessness that this is my life, and I chose it. I chose it because every day I woke up, I didn't pack my bags and leave. And you know what? It doesn't matter. I don't care if I stayed there 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, it doesn't matter. The next day is your next day to get out and take that step. So what I say is, not from a position of never experiencing it, but being exactly in that seat, but
Mm.
being right there and wishing that I could have had a different life. You know what? I just made it happen. I
Awesome.
just made it happen. And that's what I want them to know.
That is so awesome. So you and I both know firsthand that it takes special beings to give their time, their efforts to volunteer and advocacy for others, because that's what you're doing daily and throughout your life, even if it's just giving them words of encouragement. It takes a lot, right? What led you in that direction of advocacy and volunteering? Because it's not for everybody, and everybody doesn't have it in them.
That's
It
right.
takes a dedicated person to work for free 99.
Oh my goodness. I was just having that discussion with somebody last night, because every single night, I work during the daytime, crazy, awesome, crazy job, right?
Right.
And then at night, that's when I do my volunteer work. And so I have Zoom meetings, and I have this and I have that, and it's all stuff that you sign up for. You don't get paid for it. It's a labor of love. How did I get started? My mom was a PTA president every single year when I was in elementary school, because back in those days, nobody else wanted to do it. So, your mom did. And, I watched her volunteer. I watched her always up at the school. And then one day a week, she would also, she would go with a couple other people, and they'd go play the piano at the nursing home. My mother, like I said in the book, my mother is a phenomenal piano player, doesn't read a lick of
Mhm.
music. But she would go with some other church folks, and they would go to a nursing home and they'd play. And during the summer, I'd be able, I wouldn't be in school, so I'd be able to go and watch her and, just kind of sit there and get to know folks. And my mom set that example for me about volunteerism, getting out in your community and the schools, and just, giving of your time. And then the rite of passage, when your kids go to school and then you're like, oh, this is what I'm supposed to do.
Mhm.
Um, the tipping point for me was one day I was attending a state convention, and I sat through a workshop where a lady was talking about advocating and she was a lobbyist, and she was talking about going to different legislators' offices and meeting with them and talking about current legislation. And I'm there going, I thought we just, forgive me, I thought we baked cookies and sold wrapping paper. This is crazy. We do that too. And I had no idea. And so I thought, oh, I want to do that. I want to do that. I want to, we need a red light across the street from, my kids' school, because right now they have a crossing guard, and, we need things like that. We need to be able to speak up. And I didn't even correlate the two, here's
Mhm.
PTA, and then here's advocating and fighting for your kids. So the two just married each other. And the next thing you know, I'm getting involved and learning how to speak and to people who are decision makers. And so that also bled over into my personal life. So you learn how to speak for things for the association that you belong to, and then you learn how to speak for yourself, speak
Absolutely.
up for yourself. You learn where your voice is.
Yes.
So PTA, every child, one voice. Cindy found her voice through advocating. And then that bleeds over into me being able to have the confidence to just put it out there and move forward and say, here's my story. So it all just, again, if you step back and you see that timeline, I'm determined that when I'm 80 years old, or 102, that's my goal. When
All
I'm
right.
80 years old and I look back, I go, okay, well, right there, that was that tipping point, and this is where things started going a different way. Even though you think you have control over it, yeah,
Absolutely.
that there's a path that you follow. So advocacy, volunteerism, it started in my home, and I hope that my kids who watched me do that, and now they're all adults, and they're seeing this process that I'm going through. If I don't leave them anything, hopefully it's a legacy of um, selflessness, where they
Yes.
put others first, and self-care, take
Oh,
care of
yes.
yourself, but also make sure that your neighbor's okay. Make sure that the people across the street from you are okay. And yeah, that's where it started.
Hey, love it, love it. Now, we all know that this year has been quite challenging for everyone, right? We all have been swimming in these uncharted waters, don't know what's next due to COVID-19, right? So, how have
Right.
you found yourself navigating through life and your businesses and your volunteerism and being a big mama and a parent, all these great things, a worker, a worker bee, and all these great things during this pandemic?
Well, honestly, well, business wise, I work in the automotive repair industry. I work for an incredible company. I'm an operations manager. I'm in charge of franchise development here in Metro Atlanta and all over the Southeast. And because we're in automotive repair, we didn't shut down. We kept our doors open. And even when there were no customers, because there was there was a stay at home, right? We still had to be open. It was very stressful. We've got people who are franchisees. They invested all their money into their businesses, and they're trying to build a legacy and to leave to their kids and retirement. That was difficult. I learned a lot about PPP loans, and I learned so much, fortunately, because I was able to still stay working. And again, that's a blessing in itself, that I never missed one day of work, because I could work in my role. I could work virtually. I could provide support virtually. We in the PTA world, we've been using Zoom for years to connect ourselves, so learning how to use Zoom, not a big deal, already had an account. With the nonprofit, I would say it wasn't as difficult to do all of the paperwork aspect of it, but let me
Mhm.
tell you, let me tell you what did take priority. So January, the book, I finished the book in January, February. I find a great publishing company who's going to help me be able to um, get the book published. And the only reason I paused is my computer just said it's going into battery
Yep,
saver
you're
mode.
okay. You're okay.
So I'm gonna, can we go for a quick trip, and I'm gonna go get my
Yes.
cord? Is that
Yep.
okay? So obviously in January, I finished it up. I reached out to the couple that was gonna help me do the publishing. They did the editing for me and the formatting, but it's a self-published book. So, which was kind of exciting and scary all at the same time. But so then we were, I was thinking about all these things, and then March happened and the pandemic. So
Mm.
everything kind of stopped because it wasn't a priority. This wasn't going, it was going to be missed. It was going to be lost in the shuffle of everything that was going on. So time out, not going to happen. So we pushed the pause button and we just waited because I honestly believe that timing is everything.
Yes.
It plays such a vital role in everybody's life, is to be in the right place at the right time, fully prepared with the right message. Because any of those that go wrong, and something can get lost in translation, right?
Absolutely.
So that happened, and then over the summer, when we had the murder of George Floyd,
Mm-hmm.
and then all of the unrest,
Mm-hmm.
the social unrest, all of the protest. I reached out to the publisher again and I said, no, we're not taking the pause button off because this is important. So
Right.
I would never insert myself in that type of social justice issue. Let's push the pause button on this. Let's go fight that.
Absolutely.
And then let's get back on track again. So it just seemed like 2020 wasn't the year for it. 2020, there were so many other things, and then the election, and because everything else just was getting all of the attention and all the bells and whistles and all of the microphones and mega horns. So it just wasn't the right time. And I knew just to be patient, let all the dust settle, let there be some, and we would know when the time was right. So, February is when it came out, and of this year. And it was worth every moment of keeping the focus on what it needed to be, other than this at the time. But when you know the time is right, you say it's a green light and it's time to go. So it pushed us back, but what needed to happen happened. The focus of everybody was where it needed to be.
Absolutely. Well, I love that. And it took that opportunity to not look at this like, even though COVID set everybody down, I think it needed to. The world needs to be put down.
I agree.
We needed to take a pause before we continue to push play on all of the buffoonery that was happening across the world
That's right.
overall,
What
not
a
just in
great
the US
word,
of A.
buffoonery. I
Yeah.
like that word, buffoonery. And here's another thing, that because of the people having to stay at home, because people were used to being out and going to
Yes.
work and everything, the reason that the timing for me feels right with this is now that we're opening things back up again, we have no idea just how bad things got for people who
Yes.
were having to stay home. I mean, let's think about children who may have been experiencing forms of abuse at home, and then they couldn't go to school anymore, which was their sanctuary. Now they're going to slowly be able to go back to school. But what have they experienced during the last year? So
Right.
if there ever was a time that the harvest was ripe, for this message to get out, the message of hope and recovery, and just asking for help, and feeling brave enough to raise your hand and say, this isn't the life that was meant for me. I wasn't destined for this.
That's
I
right.
was destined to be whole and not to be made to feel less.
Absolutely.
Now's the time for that message to be out, as people are being able to get back out and communicate and see other people. I want to empower men, women, children, anybody, to be able to say, I need help. Can you help? And then be able to connect them immediately.
Absolutely. So, listeners, you hear that? Definitely reach out to Brave First Step and figure out how you can get involved and how you can help. And if you know anybody out there who is struggling with depression, or who's going through some whatever form of unrest it may be, if they're going through some sexual, activity that's not shouldn't be warranted in their life, or if there's abuse going on, reach out to Brave First Step, because they're here for you to take that first step, as you
That's
would
right.
if you needed AA, to help you get through this, because you're not alone. You're not by yourself. It takes a village. And those that
It's
have been in it, like
That's right.
Cindy or Big Mama, like those have been in it, they can help you through it because they've been through it. Right? So, Cindy, with that being said, what advice could you impart on the youth and adults about following through on their goals and aspirations? You talked about how, you had to push this book back because timing is everything. You had to push back so many things during this time while the world was going through all of, again, the buffoonery, or going through the social unrest and racial unrest and whatever else, the election, everything else was just taken over. And we lost sight of what's most important, and that's self-care and people and human beings and things of that sort. So, on the positive side of it, what advice can you impart on those youth and adults about just following through with your goals and aspirations by any means necessary?
Well, two things: be brave. Just be brave. If you're scared, push through that fear and step out there. Just be brave. I'm going to tell you a quick story. If you're just listening, you won't be able to see this, but I have a tattoo here that says "Be brave." Be
Love
brave.
that.
I got that quite a few years ago. I met everyone that I have quite a few of them, and they all have a story. Some of them are tear-jerking stories, but so the "Be brave," great story. I met a young woman. I met a young 82-year-old in Alexandria, Louisiana, and man, I tell you what, she's a pistol. And she's just an amazing woman who has led an incredible life. Wow. And I met her one day. I listened to the audacity when she walked in, and I don't mean audacity and oh, how dare you. I mean audacity as in she walked in a room and she owned it. I mean, owned it. And I'm sitting back going, oh, I want that. That's what I want. I want to be able to walk in a room and everybody just stop and go, yes, how are you? How's everything going? Can I help you? And her to just, she was brazen. She had no filter, and meaning that she was going to say what she was thinking. And it was just going to come out because she's 82 years old. Nobody cares. And I said, I got to get to know this woman because I need more of this person in my life. So I got to know her, and we had tea one day. It may have had a little bit of moonshine in it, but we had tea at her house. And she took me into her office, and there were all these pictures. She had a picture of herself when she was young, and she was standing outside of a little plane. Mm-hmm. And she like Amelia Earhart, with all her hat and everything. And I said, "What's that?" She goes, "Oh, I flew the Powder Puff Derby, which is from one coast to the other in an airplane." She said, "I did it. I was a few women after Amelia Earhart," and I was like, "Oh my God, what?" And then she had a picture of her roping a steer or a calf or something. She said, "Oh yeah, my first husband and I, we had a rodeo, and I used to rope calves." And I'm like, "What?" She goes, "Oh yeah, and 4 seconds." And I said, "What's that?" And she goes, "Oh, that's my fastest time." And she said, "A girl never forgets her fastest time when she is roping a steer." And I was like, oh wow. So I said to her, "How in the world? How in the world did you get into a plane and fly across the country by yourself?" And she said, "Honey, when you want to do something, even if it scares the Jesus out of you, you just got to be brave."
Love it.
Brave. And she patted me and she said, "Face your fear. If you're afraid, that means you're about to do something that's going to change your life. Just be brave." And she kept patting me, and and so I thought, I need her words to remind me, and I put them right there so I could see them.
Awesome.
So if you have a dream, you have a desire, you have a passion, if you've got a story to tell and you're too scared to tell it, find a way to be brave. And for adults out there who say, I can't do that, I'm too old. I can't do that, I'm too old. That's crap. Okay. It is never too late to figure out what you want to do when you grow up. And by the way, I don't know what I'm going to do when I grow up. I don't know that I'm ever going to grow up, but I know that I just want my life to be full of adventure. And adventure can be a great day at work. It can be climbing, mountains in the snow in Pennsylvania. It can be whatever I want it to be. I only get one life.
That's right. And you have this life to live.
Cherish it. That's right. I want to cherish it, make each moment count. And I also would tell them to just take care of others, take care of other people. Never get ahead on the backs of other people. You'll never be happy or successful.
Absolutely. Now, how can people connect with you or even volunteer for Brave First Step, donate, partner support, and more? Yeah, definitely share your information. Give it out there and say how they can get in contact with you and, volunteer for Brave First Step and help you and partner with you and things of that sort.
Well, our website, and it's a new website. It's been up just for a couple of months, and it's been donated by an amazing company. And so it's bravefirststep.org. And when you go to bravefirststep.org, you'll see our mission, you'll see a little bit about statistics about domestic violence these days, and what an epidemic it is. It is absolutely an epidemic, and we should be responding to it exactly the same way that we respond on to the pandemic. There has got to be a way to eradicate it, to make it where we're not ashamed to be able to say, I'm experiencing it. Sorry, I'm going down the rabbit hole again.
That's okay.
But at bravefirststep.org, you're going to have a way to connect to my email address. You just click a link, and the email address is a brave first step at gmail.com. And then there's also a link to the Amazon for the book purchase. And coming up in the next week, maybe the next few days, we now have a Venmo account. So if anyone just wants to make a donation, you can make a donation, as an individual. You can make it in the name of somebody. And also, if you email me and you say, I want to be a volunteer, right now, what we're asking people that want to volunteer is just to become familiar with the resources in your area. If you want to be a volunteer, we're not asking anybody to say, hey, I've got a basement and somebody can come sleep down in the, on the couch downstairs. We're not asking anybody to put themselves in a position. I may have pulled over that day and said, yeah, come on in. But you've read the book, I can take care of myself if I have to, right?
Absolutely.
I've had a little bit of training with that. But we would never ask a volunteer to put themselves in any type of harm's way or jeopardy. But what we would ask is just become familiar with the services that are in your area. If there's a program, if there's a women's shelter, if there's any type of assistance nearby. So if one day somebody reaches out near you, I can say, hey, I've got somebody there, they're 5 miles away from you. Here's their contact information. Let's see if we can't get them some immediate help. And, programs vary depending where you are. Some help you with housing. Some provide financial assistance. Some provide with clothing. They can hook you up with maybe a church or something that has clothes closets and food pantries. Some offer mental health counseling, and that's just as important. So our objective right now, what we're focusing on, is becoming very familiar in certain areas of the type of programs that are in place, and evaluating what kind of services that they offer, how many people do they serve each year, are they successful? The last thing we want to do is recommend an unsuccessful program to someone and put them in worse danger.
Right.
But just evaluating and then trying to connect with those programs and saying, hey, we see that you're doing a great job. How can we help? How can we get your message out? How can we expand your program into other areas? And if they're doing a great job and they're providing financial assistance, then we can pour some money into them. We want to be very careful and make sure that we are focusing our attention on the programs that are working. But ultimately, our goal is to be a voice for people who just don't feel like they have a voice, to provide hope for people who just feel like they're in a hopeless situation. That's ultimately what we want to do.
Absolutely. Well, good stuff. So are there any individuals or groups you would like to say thanks to for being part of your journey? Now, I always tell people when I ask this question, for those that are listening, if she doesn't call your name, it doesn't mean that she forgot about you, okay? So don't get out of your feelings. It's okay.
You're
She
so
means
funny.
well. She means well, so if she forgets you, it's okay. If you're
That's
truly
right.
genuine and you're truly in her life, you won't get upset that she forgot your name, because if you get mad about it, that means evidently you need to do better and be better. How about that?
Oh, I love that. Well, first I'm going to have to thank you because, just the fact that you invited me to come on, it's overwhelming, and it means the world to me, to be able to have a platform where I can talk about the book, but more importantly, talk about the nonprofit. The book is just a tool and a vessel to be able to raise some revenue, and hopefully share the message. The truth is, it would take me the next hour and a half to thank everybody. I definitely want to thank my board of trustees. These are people who believe in me. They believe in my mission and the vision of how it's going to go. And they're with me 100%. They tell me when I'm going down the rabbit holes, and that's not going to work, Cindy. That's not going to work. They've been by my side. And the truth is, my family, and my tribe. I have a tribe of folks that I've met through Florida PTA, through National PTA, through my life here in Atlanta, that they just they believe in me. And that's, if I can't say anything more than that, when you find someone that believes in you, when they believe in who you are, the good, the bad, all the stuff, all the junk
Absolutely.
that you have, when they say, hey, listen, if that's where you're going, I'm going with you.
Absolutely.
And you have to value that. In this world, there are so many people who just want to take, and they just want to, they want to be along for the ride, but when the road gets rough, they don't, they want out. Hey, let me out right here. I've got people who are, they're just ride or die. They're in for the long haul, and they know who they are. I just can't thank them enough. And I know that, and hopefully they know that no matter what time of day or night, if they need me, it's reciprocal. I'm there for them as well. And you just have to learn in life to surround yourself by people who lift you
Absolutely.
and people who support you. I learned, that's a life lesson I learned, that it's okay. It's my garden, and I can pull the weeds out anytime I'm ready to. And if they're smothering and they're keeping the good stuff out, then they got to go.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So now I'm putting you on the spot one final time and ask, what is next for Cindy Bell Gerhardt?
Go save the world. Girl, I'm going to save the world. Goodness. Just more adventures, more hard work, more volunteering, really getting this nonprofit established, getting its roots in, and seeing where we can be of more value. I'm just going to keep plodding along and looking for the happy in every single day. That's what's next. Just looking for the happy, and spreading. I want to be an ambassador of hope.
All right. I love it. I love it. Well, good stuff. So again, Cindy, thank you so much for you taking time out of your busy schedule and giving us the energy that you gave us, and sharing the resources that you've shared tonight, and sharing your story, and just being a boatload of awesomeness and badass.
Boatload. All right,
Badassery,
here we
right?
go. Look, I got the
Boatload.
book. I got
There
the
you
book. I'm
go.
holding it up. There it is. The
From
badass.
broken to badass. Yes,
Tattoo.
absolutely.
Whoop, whoop.
Love it, love it. So thank you again for joining us on this platform. So, Hindsighters, please join us next Monday at 7 p.m. on Keeping It Real with Miss T, where we give you the real tea with a twist on Hindsight Media Radio 103.5 FM, where there's always something good to talk about. Please remember to visit our website at www.hindsightmediaradio.com, or you can ask Alexa and Google devices to play Hindsight Media Radio. Good night.